All right, folks, it's time for another edition of Which One Works. And this is the series where I review and critique my images to show you which ones work and which ones don't based upon my preferences and my likes. Oftentimes it's really just a subtle difference between images, at the same location for me to decide which one works and which one doesn't. And it's not typically the main subject, but it's usually those elements around the subject that I am looking for as I critique my own images. Now, I just got back from leading a workshop along the Oregon coast, had a fantastic time. We went to spend a few days in Yachats in the central Oregon coast and then went down south into Bandon. And we had a great group, really fun weather, challenging at times because of the marine layer. But I came away with some wonderful images as I was teaching folks, and I thought that I would go through a series of Which One Works coming fresh off of a workshop. So let's go ahead and take a look at a few of the images that I captured and some of the comparisons that I'm looking for in my images to decide which one works and which one I should process to eventually maybe make it into my portfolio. So let's take a look. All right, let's start off from the first night along the Oregon coast in Yachats. And we had just done our meet and greet and we walked out behind the hotel and this was the sunset that we got. And this is a really steep beach, close to the hotel. So the water action is very vigorous. There's a lot of incoming and outgoing waves that move extremely fast. So capturing water motion is one of the key things that we do here at this particular beach. So this is the first image, and I'll show you the second image. Here's the second image. So let me go back to number 1 and number 2. And let me pick these apart and show you the things that I'm looking for. Number 1, what was really important for me in this particular scene was this line of foam here at the bottom. And I wanted this to be a compositional element. So the curve of the foam, how much I stopped its motion, to be a well-defined line. This line and then this horizontal line right next to it are two things that were important to me in shooting this shot. And then thirdly, the water action that's here on the rocks because of this wave crash and wave splash. So in this shot, if I didn't know any better, I think it would be okay. There's a lot that can be done to process this image and make it look wonderful. But when I come to the second image here, what I see is a really clear defined line with a beautiful curve and a beautiful arc to it. And then this fan of water right here also has a beautiful arc on the leading edge of it. So those two arcs mimic each other. And then instead of a big splash, this shot was taken right after the splash. And what I get is these two little waterfalls coming off of the rocks. So because of those two little waterfalls, this shot works for me better than the previous shot. I've stopped the motion, I've got some symmetry and balance, I've got some great visual interest, and last but not least, for those that know me, know I talk about space around objects, space between objects and the edge of the frame. Look at this rock right here and the space that I have versus this rock, and it's getting really close to the edge of the frame. And so having a little bit more space between the rock and the edge of the frame is important to me, so that's why this one works. One of the mornings I took the crew down to the Newport Harbor, so the fishing harbor where the crabbing boats and fishing boats dock, and it's a great place to learn how to see. We see patterns, textures, shapes, and colors. And so we practice a lot seeing different things and really kind of doing some design work. Reflections are a huge part of the scene, and so we practice using reflections and symmetry and balance and all that kind of good stuff. What caught my eye in this shot was the green hose hanging down from this blue boat or hanging down against the blue boat. Then it's got this great reflection along the bottom. So that's why I stopped at this particular location. And I worked a couple of different compositions, and this is the first one I wanted to show you. So, yes, I've got the green hose, I've got this great reflection, but I've also got this bilge hole right here. This is a bilge pump, sends out water that gets into the boat. I've got this element in the shot. By itself, if I didn't know any better, this shot looks fine. It looks great. It does not, though, capture my original intent for stopping, which was solely the green hose against the blue boat. This is kind of a cool, interesting thing, but not really what I was after. And so I recomposed, I changed the orientation of my camera to highlight just the hose and the blue boat. And I've got this beautiful green hose. I can't believe I said beautiful green hose, but I did. And then it's reflection. And going vertically like this, I get a really long reveal of this hose. And then I've got the water line, the dividing line between the real and the reflection, about midway up the photograph. The hose is isolated, and so it's very simple and it's very graphical. And for why I stopped and why I wanted to shoot this shot, this image works better than the previous image. Both of them work good, but this was the reason why I stopped. Later, when a couple days later, we were down along a beach, and it was kind of a grayish night with really weird light going on, so I kind of wanted to capture the light. And this is at a particular beach just south of Yachats, and there's this channel that water comes in at higher tides, and so I wanted to photograph that. And so I've got this particular shot that I took, which is okay, and then I've got this particular shot that I took, which is okay. Neither of these shots I particularly care for. It just, what I was feeling and seeing at the time did not translate extremely well onto the photographic sensor. So I'm not 100% sure about either one of these. But the comment that I wanted to make was, I originally set up this shot as a vertical because my subject, my main subject, which is this channel of water, is sort of long. And it's almost vertical, a vertical subject, kind of like shooting a waterfall. I wanted this vertical orientation to maybe elongate and accentuate the length of this channel. But what it makes me feel like when I see this shot is my shoulders kind of crunch up a little bit. I feel crowded. Where in a shot like this, it maybe does not accentuate the channel quite as much, but I feel like I can let my shoulders down. I don't feel crowded. I feel like the channel and the rock in the middle has room to breathe, and I've got a little bit more context with the mountains behind it. So this is the one that I tend to prefer over this particular one. One of the things I'd love to do is photograph reflections at the beach, and especially the waves of sand that happen. And the time to do this is the golden hour before sunset and then the blue hours after sunset, because the way the light falls across these ripples really accentuates their shape, and then they pick up color quite nicely. So I took this shot, and I also took this shot. Now, let me talk about this shot first. So I like this shot. It really accentuates the ripples in the foreground. I've got this leading line of surf stopping partway through this background reflection that I had going on. And this is okay. This is an okay shot, and I think it works. If I go to this shot, I've still got this great foreground detail right here. But this background reflection, look at how much color from the sky is being picked up in this reflection. So if I want to have a little bit more color in my photograph, which I do, I tend to like this photograph a little bit better. Now let's look at the water line. Notice that there's just a sliver of the wave at the very top of the frame. In a way, I kind of like that because it's a little bit abstract. It's a little bit not normal in that there's such a small bit of that wave coming in versus a shot like this where it's instantly recognizable. You know what it is. You know I'm at the beach. You know here's a wave coming in. Here, it's a little bit less clear what it is that you're looking at. So I tend to prefer this shot over the previous shot. Now we went to Bandon, of course, and the wonderful wizard's hat that was down there, and I showed the group how to shoot sun stars against the hat at a particular time of night. So I've got two frames. I've got this frame and I've got this frame. Both are relatively similar. The real big difference is the wave action. And whenever you're shooting the coast and shooting waves, you know, I shoot a lot of frames and then wait till I come home and pick the best one based upon the wave action. I didn't really have to think about the subject or the sun star. That stuff's easy, but it was really about timing of clicking the shutter button. So let me look at this one first. This is the one that works for me. I've got a sliver of the reflection right here from the wizard's hat. I've got this great horizontal line with some motion in it. I've got this somewhat diagonal line. I've got a horizontal line, horizontal line, horizontal line. I've got the horizon line, and I've got a really nice, well-defined sun star happening. When I look at this shot, I have just a smidge or a hint of the reflection that's happening right here. The thing that I don't like about this shot and why it does not work for me is this surf line. Look at how big and how dark it is. It almost acts like a visual fence to block the viewer from going to the back of the image. This is a really strong design element in this photograph, and it's not why I was shooting the photograph, and I think it takes away from my main subject. So this one got rejected in favor of this one. It's a little bit subtler. I can just do a stair step up these small little waves to my main subject. Going back to Newport, just a couple of quick examples for you. I've got this shot and I've got this shot. Subtly different between the two. A shot like this, so we had beautiful warm golden light just as the sun was coming up, and there was no wind, so we had calm water and great chance for reflection. So in this first shot, I like it. It shows the warm light. It shows this sort of line of sterns of fishing boats. I've got great reflections, but I've also got all of this dead space down here on the lower left, which I don't really care for. If I tighten it up a little bit and move just a little bit to the right, notice I got rid of that dead space. I still have a lot of reflection here in the bottom of the photograph. So if I look that, see all that reflection I have down here? I've preserved a lot of that reflection, and I've kind of tightened up on the sterns of the fishing boat to make them a little bit more prominent in the image. Here I felt a little bit further away. It was more of an environmental shot that happened to have fishing boats. This feels more like a shot of fishing boats, period. And I got rid of that dead space, and this is the shot that works for me versus the previous one. Then the last reflection shot, I love doing things like this. I've got this bilge hole, I've got a line of rust, I've got the water line right down here, and I've got these horizontal / diagonal lines running along the planks. So great symmetry, great balance. Love this shot. Love this scene. So I've got this shot and I've got this shot. To me, both of them work. But the thing that tips me in favor of the horizontal composition versus the vertical composition is these plank lines. Notice, these plank lines are basically horizontal. And I shot this because these were an important part of the design of this photograph for me. And so because I have a horizontal element, I wanted to show as much of those as possible. So I think in the horizontal orientation, the landscape orientation, it works much better than the portrait orientation. Wouldn't you agree? All right, well, there you have it. There's a few of my images from the Oregon coast and some of my thinking around which one works and which one doesn't. You know, as I hope you saw during this video, a lot of times it's just a very subtle difference between images. And so that's why you as the photographer need to be self-critical. Don't beat yourself up, but be really critical of your work and articulate your intention for the photograph. Why did you shoot it? And does what you capture articulate why you took this photograph? And that's oftentimes, as you saw a few examples in this, why I choose one photograph of another to better articulate what it was that I wanted to capture in a particular location. So if you like this video, if you like all the other videos I have on my channel, please feel free to subscribe down below, tickle the bell, do all that kind of good stuff. If you'd like to support this channel, I do have a Patreon account, which you'll find the link down below. I appreciate any support that you're willing to give. And with that, happy shooting, stay safe, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.